Good day, students. We are going to continue with an activity in Excel. Firstly, let's look at our activity. So we've got here where it tells you to retrieve the document saved as question 2. Now we have done that. You can see, okay, activity 2. Supposed to be question 2, but question 2, activity 2. Insert a header with question 2b left, station number in the center, and examination number right. So remember, when we do that, you can choose the method of saying page layout, going to your page setup, going to, let's wait for it, header and footer, and then here you can click on custom header. That's your footer one. Okay. Or the method I like is going here to your page layout, clicking on the second picture. Then it displays as a normal document. I can click now on my left hand side, type in my information center, and right hand side, type in my information. Then next question, it tells you adjust column width for all text to be legible. Now I purposefully put my information like this because I want to show you what to do. Now you have the option, you see here a number of students. What you can do here where column A ends and goes to column B, you click, you can see how my mouse changes. You click and you can drag it. You see that line? And where you leave it, where you take your finger off the mouse, the line will stop. You see, I just put it directly behind S. You see, then it will stop directly behind S. Now, I prefer to leave at least a little space, like at least one letter space, okay, at least. Here you can see surname. Now, surname, the column heading looks fine, but do you see the surnames, they are cutting. So another method is either click and drag, or yeah, you could just double click and it will open up your space. Now double click is definitely faster. Okay, let's double click, but it's not always the best option. It depends. For example, if you are working in column A, double clicking in A, do you see now it will adjust according to this main heading. Then you have to go again and just adjust it. Okay, so there's some cases where double click isn't maybe the best option. Then let's go and look. The following instruction tells you do changes as indicated in the activity below. So now we can see we've got to insert a column. You can see they want it to be name and name of number of students, surname, name, initials, ID number, task 1, and after task 1 they want this 75% column to be inserted. So when we go back to Excel, you see they want task 1 to stay here, and then here they want the 75% column to be inserted. So what you do, on the place where you want your new column to be inserted, you can see I want it to be inserted over here, and I want task 2 to move up one space. So on the place where you want your new column to be inserted, you just right click on this column heading and you say insert. Now I can type 75%, and you can see that my work is now going over to a next page. Now we can make my column smaller, but always go check for instructions for landscape. And you will see here where it tells you to save and print. Do you see there it tells you to turn to landscape? I'm going to change it now to landscape. So I'm going to say page layout, orientation, landscape. And now I can see my paper fits, my work fits on one paper again. Borders, I'll put it in afterwards. Especially when doing calculations, then you always have extra lines that you need to take away anyway. Next instruction is where we have to delete this column, total, delete total column. Now, if you had information below, then you would not like to use the option where we say right click, delete, and then it will delete it, you see. But that option is nice if you don't have any information below. So if you have information below which you don't want to disappear, let's say this is my information. Now, if I right click and I say delete, you see then it deletes that information as well. Let's undo. So if that is the case, that you have information below, you would just highlight the text only that you want to delete. Right click, you will say delete. And then it will ask you questions. It tells you shift cells left, what. I'm just going to say okay. You see it's gone now, and that information is still there. But if you don't have information at the bottom, then it's fine if you just go right click on your this column heading, if I can call it that, the ABC and so on. You can say delete, and then it deletes it. Okay, so just look what's going on underneath your document. Then our next instruction is where we have to insert a column 25%. Let's go insert 25%. So I'm going to click 25%. Always note where do they type their column headings or headings. Okay, do they type it on top, on the next one? How do they type it? Especially when we look at this next one, do you see the YM standing for year mark? Do you see this? Here we've got a line for all of them, but do you see this one is like cutting? It's in the center. Okay, so what do we do? In Excel, we can go type in year mark, YM, capital letters. Then you can see it's across both of these cells. Do you see when I look here? It's across both cells. So I'm going to highlight both cells. Then you can go to Home, and I can say Merge and Center. Now it's Merge and Center. Do you see that line is gone? Let's look if it's the same. Now, okay, we see that the line is gone, but you see my space on top and on the bottom, vertical alignment. Okay, let's go look at it. I click on it, and then here in Home, do you see this one is to put your alignment on top for your year mark. This one is at the bottom, this one, center. And while we are talking about that, if they tell you to center your heading across your document, all you do is you highlight where your document starts. You see it starts here in column A and it ends here in column J. That means you will highlight from column A up to column J, not up to M. You highlight up to where your activity ends. And then you can just say Merge and Center. You can always change your alignment to right as well. Okay, but let's say it's center. Remember, you can change your headings font as well, same like in Microsoft Word. Okay, borders we'll do later. Let's look at your next instruction. It tells us now here. Now this is just a basic calculation. It tells you, and we also have to insert this text. Let me quickly insert it. IST2. Skip one. We say IST2. And then we've got lowest T1, and the next one is average YM. So we say average, and always check your spelling for average. A lot of students spell it AVA. It's AVE, average. Okay, now let's go look at your formulas. Going back here. Now here you see it says A, and here it says A. Okay, and sometimes they can even put a column heading in front, A, and they can say total or YM or however. Okay, so here we see A, there's A. Remember the arrow means copy the formula. So A is calculated by saying T1 times 75%. Now what is important to note I'm going to make it a bit smaller. Let's do it like this. I'm going to make this one a bit smaller. Okay. I wonder if I mustn't change this. Places. Okay, now what is important about this formula is when we look at this one, T1 times 75%. Do you see a 75% is keyed in? If there were no column or no keyed in 75%, then it would have meant that you would have typed in 75%. Okay? But because we see the 75%, it means we cannot go type it in. It's already typed in. We have to use it. So let's see, how do we do it? Now they tell you exactly what to do. They say here equal. So I'm going to say equal. Then they say T1. Do you see here's T1? Don't go click on this T1. If you look at this, this is your column heading for number of students, and there's the number of the students. Here's the heading, surname, and here is the information. The heading, the information, heading, information, and so forth. If they talk about T1, it means they want this information underneath the heading. It means they want Zungu's information. Okay, so we click on T1. This is my heading, T1, and what's underneath it. Then we've got this multiply. So I say times, multiply. Then remember, 75% is keyed in, so you may not go type in 75%, okay? Because it's keyed in there for you. I click on it, and then I press enter. Now let's see what happens. My first answer looks beautiful. But remember this instruction where it tells you that you have to copy the formula. Let me first make it big again. Do you see there it tells you copy the formula? Now let's see what happens if I copy the formula. Let's move it again. When I click here and I copy my formula, I drag it down. You see now some of the answers is 0 and then big amounts 0. This amount, it looks a bit crazy. Now, why is that? I'm not going to go too much into explaining this, but what I'm going to tell you is the following. Whenever we click outside of our information, then it means we have to press F4 on your keyboard. Now remember F4, when you look at your keyboard, you have escape, F1, F2, F3, F4. So what is outside? We talk about inside and outside. Now, inside is your information, this area. The information of these people. The people are their surname, their name, initials, the task 1 mark, and so on. Now, everything outside of this is outside. Okay, this is inside, the information is inside, and everything else is outside. Now, just for this first one, I'm going to color this information, the inside part. Let's color it in this blue one. Okay, so it means this that is in blue, that is inside. Now let's look at our formula again. I'm going to click where my answer must appear. Then it tells me I have to press equal, so I say equal. Then it says task 1. Do you see this is task 1? I click on it. Now remember, you first click now. Then you ask yourself the question, is this inside or is it outside? Inside means here where you have highlighted, this blue area. Outside is everywhere else. Now you see it is inside. Now if it's inside, we do not press F4. Then I do my next calculation. Now our power just went off. So I hope I can see what I'm doing. So my next the next step is by saying, then what do I want? 75%. So I'm going to click on 75%. Now I first click and then I ask myself the question, is it inside or is it outside? Now do you see it's outside? It's outside of your information. That means you have to press F4. Now my keyboard, I must just make sure on the laptop that I press it correctly. Yes. Okay. Do you see here how it changed? It puts us dollar signs. This means now that you have pressed F4. Okay. Then all you do is you press enter. And now the answer is still the same. Let's copy the formula. When I copy my formula, let's see if it looks the same. You see there's no zeros displayed. The reason is because of this outside one that we have clicked F4. Now don't worry about it too much now. In N4 we will explain this a little bit deeper. Let's look at our next one. Okay, the next one tells us, let's go put it here. The next one tells us B. Okay, so let's see where's B. Over here, underneath 25%, it tells us T2 times 25%. Let's go to this one. It's fine like this. Just want to actually make it a bit bigger. Okay, so we click where our answer must be displayed. Now I'm going to take away this blue area. So let's see if you can do this correctly. I click where my answer must be. It says T2, so I click on T2. I first click. Then I ask myself the question, is it inside or is it outside? Now remember, it's important to ask yourself because F4 can be in the beginning of a formula, it can be in the center of a formula, it can be at the end of a formula. There's no specific place for F4 to be. F4 is always when you click outside. Now when we look at this one is inside. So that means we do not press F4. Then we say multiply with 25%. I'm first going to click before I ask myself the question. I click and then I say, is this inside or is this outside of the information? And I can see it's outside. That means I have to press F4. So I'm going to press F4. Do you see the dollar signs? That means we have pressed F4. Now I can just press enter. Then I copy my formula. Good. Let's look at our year mark. How do we calculate our year mark? Year mark is calculated by saying 75% plus 25%. Now does that mean this one plus this one? No, the 75% plus 25% they are talking about is this column headings. It's always important for you to read your instructions and read your screen. It's very important. Now, for this activity, we cannot say click where the answer must be and use sum. Because what sum will do is it will take everything together. Now, I want to say this one plus this one. Okay, sum is where you do not have an open cell. Everything is selected together. So we cannot use this one. I'm going to say escape. Now what do? We say, just as the question paper tells you, it is equal. Then you press equal. It's so dark now. Equal. Then you say 75%, this information, 75% plus my 25%. And I press enter. All I do now, just like in your question paper, you copy the formula. So let's copy the formula, click and drag it down. There's your formula, your answers. Okay, you see if I click on it, you can see my formula that I have used. Now let's look at this highest, lowest, and average. Where must my answers be displayed? Underneath ID number. Let's go back. Underneath ID number, I want the highest. So that's my form. My answer must be, I go to my shortcut and I see I have to say highest is max. The maximum of task 2. Task 2, so I highlight it. And I press enter. My next one, lowest. Click where my answer must appear. I go to my shortcut. Lowest means minimum. Click on minimum. It's what you want, but you tell him, no, I want task 1. I highlight task 1 and I press enter. Then your average for year mark, I click where my answer must be. I go to my shortcut. I choose average and then I highlight year mark. And then I just press enter. Okay, always go read how they want your numbers to be formatted. Now let's quickly look. Before you can save and print this one, you see my lines, my borders looks terrible. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight it. Let's highlight like this again. Okay, and I'm going to highlight like this. I like that control where I divide them. Okay. Then you do have this option where you can clean it by saying no borders. Put in your outside borders, but I want to show you another method as well. We've got this more borders option. I also like this one. Just wait. Okay, then this area represents your highlighted area. Now, what you can do is you can say, I want a top border, so you put in a top border. See, that one is in gray. Let's just, okay, I want a right border, so I put in a right border. So you can do this, okay? Or if you like, say none. Now it's still there, but it's because we didn't click on OK. So we take away all the borders. Then you can say, okay, what do I want? I want the outside border. Do you see? This is my outside border. Okay. Then I want my vertical lines. Do you see this is my vertical lines? Goes down like this. Now, do I want this horizontal line? No, I don't want these lines. So do not put these lines. This lines means there will be lines throughout this document. Okay, this highlighted area. So no line there for me. And I click on OK. And look how beautiful it looks. Okay, and then you just read all your instructions. Make sure your orientation, make sure the formatting of your numbers and so on. Make sure it's cutting none of your work. Remember, if it's small like this, for example, and it makes hashes, let's make it even smaller, and it makes hashes, it means that when you print it, it will still put hashes because your column is too small. So you can either double click or you can click and drag the space open. Okay, but remember the hashes means your columns is too small. Okay, people, keep well until next time.